Hello and welcome into our December altar. Welcome back. We are launching in after that first big week of December. I don't know, somehow in my mind, once we start to hit the 10th, 11th, 12th, as we will this week, I feel like the month is half over, and yet somehow it just started last week. So I need someone to help me recalculate how it is that time is moving so unbelievably quickly. But we moved through that first week. We had that super full moon in Gemini, and now we have a little bit of astrological weather rolling in this week. The big headline that I'm tuning into is the 12/12 portal and some energies I'll touch on a little bit here tonight about that, which will culminate our week. But before that, we'll do a little talk about some of the aspects coming in this week, along with pulling a new set of 5 winter Waite tarot cards to guide us this week, to give us some insight into the overarching collective themes and what we might expect. But I added in another deck for us to explore. This one is a Christmas tarot, Ghosts of Past, Present, and Future. And we've used this one before. It's just the major arcana. So it's those first 23 cards, including the Fool. I'm sorry, 22 cards rather. I'm adding in my mind. 22 cards. Major arcana that will be like we did last month, where we sort of had an archetype for the week. We're going to pull that first to see sort of what's overlighting. Then we'll pull our 5 tarot cards and we'll culminate with a Yule oracle pull. Now, Yule solstice are happening at the end of this month, which we know is going to be here before we know it. So that's going to be on the 21st, and I am preparing my solstice Yule altar space because I will be rolling into tuning in with some messages for that season and weaving in some really special elements, as well as decks that we like to use every year around the solstice and for Yule. But I have a new one, so I want to give you a little sneaky peek. Very excited. And I'm speaking of the winter solstice or summer solstice, depending on where you are in the world, and the Yule oracle spreads that I'm offering with my seasonal offerings right now. These are special readings with dedicated spreads, and I am so excited that I have just received this Seasons of the Witch Winter Tarot. So this will be the tarot deck that I use in both of those readings. I know a bunch of you have already snagged your Yule or winter solstice reading. I've had a number of them given as gifts. Wonderful for this season and just kind of reflecting back on the prior season, looking ahead to where we are headed. I weave in the astrological weather and a lot of other symbolism and practices and traditional elements to be just little nuggets of info that I share along with tuning in through the beautiful vibration of some of these very ancient traditions and also practices that align the astrology as well as the different belief systems around Yule and being an ancient pagan festival, and then coinciding with the astronomical event of solstice and all the things. So this deck is the one we will be exploring, and I'm just mentioning those seasonal offerings because this week is the last week where all of the bookings, no matter what you book, gift certificate purchases, year ahead reading, the Yule reading, the solstice reading, any of the sessions that I offer is an entry in my gift certificate giveaway, anything through 12/12. So that's my little plug today, just to share that this came over the weekend, and I cannot wait to dive into it after I set up the altar space. So that is very exciting, and I really look forward to diving into those readings that we already have and would love it if you wish to join. Check it out, and if your booking is in by 12/12, that's an entry into the gift certificate giveaway. Okay, let's tune in. I sprayed some new light energy here before I came on, which is a seasonal spray from years past of frankincense, lemon, and cedar, bringing in that new wave of energy while also anchoring it in with the crimson base root chakra. So a little as above, so below energy to get us started. So I infused that in, and now we're going to tap into our little mini Christmas tarot for the ghosts of past, present, and future, which is going to give us sort of an overlighting energy for this week. And oh yeah, if you see that beaming, that's my new light. It's funny, new light, the name of the spray. I got my new altar light. Some of you know I was fretting about my faulty light. So my new one came. There we go. Okay. Who just flew out there? Ah, it is the devil. And the key word on this card is entrapment. So it looks like some coal was received here in this particular card. So we'll tune into this and see what message the devil is setting for us to begin this week and speaking to those old chains. This deck gives me a very Charles Dickens Christmas Carol feel for maybe obvious reasons, the ghost, the past, present, future. And so we've gotten some pretty powerful messages from this deck in the past. So we'll see what comes in here for us with devil. And then we get into our 5-card spread. So I'm going to start shuffling now and setting some intentions for us as a collective. This is a general overview where we check in with those 5 different intentions for the energies moving through this week and how you might expect to see them. But of course, you're always invited to take what resonates and leave the rest, is how it works with a collective reading. There's always someone else there to pick it up. But that being said, I do love hearing from you in all the wild ways these cards come up. The synchronicities just flow. Now, as we go through these, if you are wanting some more clarity, some more specific guidance this week, and you would like a free personal card pull, feel free to reach out and let me know, and I'll be doing those this week. And that's where I'll send you a private video recorded card pull just for you in the context of this collective reading. So let's see, Monday sets the tone for the week on the other side of that devil entrapment card. What's coming in for Monday? Yeah, speak of entrapment, the 8 of Swords. So this is a card of contraction, of feeling that tight squeeze that actually is calling for expansion on our part in looking beyond just what meets the eye or what we cannot see or perceive as limited options, limited choices, and free ourselves, which is really the devil's message, is freeing ourselves of a prison of our own making. And so that's interesting to be coming right on the other side of that card to set the tone. Now we have Tuesday, which speaks to a potential block or challenge this week. I really am so clumsy with this deck. I was throwing cards around all week last week when I was doing the individual empowerment readings, and some reason this deck has a lot of movement for me. So let's see, 1 card for Tuesday, a potential block or challenge. Ooh, the 4 of Wands. So this is a card of celebration, of tribe, of gathering, the home. And of course, that 4 reference speaks to the framework, to the foundation that's being set. And, you know, this is a card that can traditionally speak to milestone celebrations. So we're talking birthdays, weddings, gatherings of all kinds. But a potential block or challenge. So we'll feel into just how that's showing up this week when we talk about Tuesday. And then Wednesday represents our midweek blessing. So a midweek blessing this week. See what's coming up there for Wednesday's energy. Ooh, what are you asking me for? You already know. It's the High Priestess. It's the wise one. And she is showing us what it is that we haven't been seeing, because this is all what's unconscious. And in many cases, again, you already know the answer, even though it's not coming to front of mind, or you may not be seeing something reflected back at you that you know is a truth, but it's not your experience of what you're seeing or perceiving or experiencing. And she trumps this energy, okay? So there's this sense of, if we're going to have a blessing and it's a major arcana card coming in, that's the day for it to be here, because there's a beautiful energy in sitting in your power and really holding that there is what I'm feeling. In the midst, it's almost like, and this deck of especially, I mean, I look at the color and patterns in every deck, but the red and the green, I talked last week about the red coming up a lot because we got crimson as our color for the empowerment pack this month. So we had the color of crimson, to which I had pulled in that crimson base root chakra, which, like I said, I did bring that in here tonight. So in having done that, when I see someone bound by red, like she is here, and then I see someone cloaked in red in a rather, royal, regal kind of a way, I feel that the very thing that used to keep her bound and playing small and restricted is actually now like her superpower, that cloak, that cape that she has. So interesting the way the red is showing up between the two. In the middle, we have two people dressed in red and green. So we'll feel into that. Thursday is, how are we growing? How are we growing? How might we grow this week? How are we growing? As we say, when we reach this point of the year, we're talking a reflective, how have we already been growing? How have we grown? And where to from here that we're expanding? So what's coming up for us in that regard? Knight of Cups. This is action energy in that direction of the heart, of compassion and love, unconditional love, and a little romance and a little chivalry too. This Knight of Cups brings. There's an offering here. It's in a red cup. So we have this sense of what is being offered as a next step as we're growing and perhaps leveling up, or sort of this coming of age too, I'm feeling with this one. So we'll talk about that for Thursday. And then lastly, the last tarot card is Friday to wrap up the week. So we'll see what's coming in here for Friday. There's that Three of Cups again. They peeked out earlier. So interesting, because the challenge in the gathering and the communing and celebrating, but then we also have Friday highlighting gathering, communing, and celebrating, coming together in this really beautiful way that's very aligned and sort of toasting and in celebration, so it's challenged perhaps for many different reasons. And again, meet it where you are and see what resonates for you. And then we have this idea, though, that what's available for us to partake in, it's almost as if this is being offered, this cup, and then in taking that, we are able to come together in this beautiful way. So definitely a story weaving here. And of course, this is the 12/12 portal at the end of the week. So things that are unfolding as we go. Let's pull our final card. That's going to be the Seasons of the Witch Yule Oracle. So yes, that beautiful winter tarot deck that I showed you, Seasons of the Witch, that is made by the same two creators. So we really enjoy this Oracle series with all the Seasons of the Witch, and now they have this winter tarot. So like I said, very excited to merge the two together in those upcoming seasonal readings. So let's see what's punctuating our week here from Seasons of the Witch Yule. Ooh, I'm getting all the all of the wicked vibes, since I know that's a hot topic right now. Forest. Oh, would you look at that? So we've got two number 15s here. The Devil and Forest is also number 15. So we are bookended by our featured decks with the number 15, which carries a 6 frequency. And 6 is 12. We're going to be talking about the power of the number 12 and how that's being amplified here this week. So pretty cool. So the Forest card says, it is without question a place of mystery, whispers of power you've forgotten. Let thy strength crawl from beneath the ground and remind you, dear child, you are magic. Cool. All right. So we will explore that one and get into it. So once again, thank you so much for being here. And whether you're watching this over on my Free Empowerment Sharecast or you're watching this on one of my social media spaces, I thank you so much for your support, for your participation, for sharing where you can. Really appreciate you helping me to expand and share with anyone who you think might appreciate the messages. And then, of course, if you would like a personal card pull this week, reach out. If you're interested in one of the seasonal offerings, the gift certificate giveaway, etc., please let me know. All right, let's get into it now with some astrological weather. All right, let's begin with some of that astrological weather coming up in the cosmos this week, starting with December 9th. I'm highlighting Mars in Sagittarius square Saturn in Pisces. So now when Mars and Saturn get together, tension can usually be felt in the air because this planetary combo can also make us feel like we've come up against a brick wall. So our progress can feel stilted, or we may feel that we're blocked somehow from moving ahead. Interesting. So I'm feeling into that Four of Wands as a potential block or challenge this week, partnered with that blindfolded and bound Eight of Swords. So what's up as we're entering this week that might have us feeling limited in some way? We might observe some tense situations in the world around us or in a relationship in our lives. So this can be us, it can be in our stratosphere, it could be on the world stage, right? The best way to navigate this energy is to take responsibility for what is in our control and leave the rest. And if you've ever seen that before, that circle of like everything that's inside the circle are things I control. And then there's the things outside of the control of our control. There's very little actually in the circle. So when you have to really, it's this or that, it can really help to give us some more clarity around truly what we truly have control over, and then releasing the rest and letting it go with love. So then December 10th, we have another planet that's joining the direct parade. Neptune is stationing direct in Pisces after being in retrograde since July 4th. So it's been a minute. And in this process, secrets may be revealed or more information may come to the surface that we didn't realize the first time. So we may also find ourselves experiencing a new sense of spiritual awareness and a deeper understanding of events that occurred in the past. So this is a good time to also reflect on your spiritual journey and the lessons that you've been moving through. Do you still feel aligned with your spiritual beliefs and values? You may find that something has shifted. So yeah, after a period like this of retrograde and, whatever energies that we are receiving through a retrograde tend to be their most potent at the very beginning and at the end. Of course, we have the pre-shadow and the post-shadow. So that's where we're sort of coming out of the dark, coming back up to the surface here with Neptune stationing direct in Pisces. So that's where, we could be getting some clarity or sort of an understanding now in hindsight as this is stationing direct here this week. Now, December 11th, Mercury enters Sagittarius. So the planet of the messenger moves into adventurous and wise Sagittarius. So this is a good time to expand our mindset and to try new things. When we expand our minds, they can never go back, right? I was going to make a joke about waistlines, but hey. But yes, once I know what I know, I can't unknow it, right? Once my mind is expanded. So see if you can open your mind to learning something new or experiencing a brand new culture, for example. Because Mercury is still in its shadow phase, what I was just saying about retrogrades, since last month's retrograde. So past information, insights, or situations may come back around for review. And Mercury will officially leave its shadow phase by December 16th. So you might only hear me mention that one more time, but yes, it's definitely been influencing us in terms of our mind, our understanding, our communication. So those are all things that are in transition. Now, on the other side of those three aspects, we end the week on 12/12, the 12/12 portal. So yes, the 12th day of the 12th month, which is in and of itself a powerful numerology code, and it's activated here on this day that's helping to raise the frequency of our light body. This can help us to access higher realms of consciousness and bring a sense of completion to a greater cycle. So now 12 is a powerful number in numerology that represents wholeness and completion. We've got 12 months in a year, 12 signs in the tropical zodiac, and it's only once that we've experienced all 12 of these states that we can gain a bigger picture perspective and understanding as to where we have been. Now, the numerology code of 12/12 also helps us to activate and raise the frequency of our light body or energy field. So with our light body activated, we can view the events of our lives from a higher state of awareness. Yeah, some really powerful messages have been coming through. I'm personally doing a light code activation this month. I'm working with 𝓘𝓷𝓽𝓮 𝓼𝓪𝓬𝓼 and Archangel Raphael, and it's bringing in the divine feminine. So Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, and a whole, I mean, it's just started. I'm only on day 2. Day 3 tomorrow is going to be another big activation. So I'm really excited about what I've been tapping into. And as I'm processing all of it, I will definitely be sharing anything that I want to bring forward for us collectively. But with that, 12/12 is a very significant day in this light code activation series, which is about the divine feminine light codes and Christ consciousness. So very cool to see that being, amplified here in this overall interpretation of the energies of 12/12 and the way in which they bring this opportunity to really activate and raise that frequency in our light body. So like I said, I'm just giving you a quick overview, but I will certainly share more around that 12/12 portal. And then of course, as I move through this series, looking forward to sharing any insights that come forward. So let's get into it now with our card messages. We're going to start with our Christmas tarot, the ghosts of past, present, and future. All right, so our overlighting archetype for this week coming forward for us from the Christmas tarot, and this one is the devil, keyword entrapment, card 15, which we have on both ends of our spread this week. So we're going to feel into the interpretation here of this devil card through the lens of this Christmas tarot, and then I'll just tap in intuitively to anything else that I feel we're expanding upon. So with this keyword of entrapment, the devil card, she says, not usually a good card. The devil indicates a trap and one that is not easily maneuvered. The worst of it is that you've probably already seen the trap, have stepped into it, and cannot see a way out. You've lost your belief in yourself. Even if there is a way out, a small one to be sure, you won't believe it's for you. The old Murphy's Law statement, if something can go wrong, it will, is the mantra for the devil. Broken promises steal your resolve. Get out while you still can, if you still can, it says in bold italics. Well, I'm going to share a little bit about the coal symbolism here in a moment, but I think it's interesting that it immediately starts with saying, not usually a good card. And then the fact that we have coal here, like, have we been naughty? Have we been nice? Did we receive coal? And all of those, again, to what feels like very restrictive parameters that we place things in, and the way that we give words power, and the way that we perceive of them through a lens of guilt and shame and assumed doom and gloom in this case. So what's coming up? What's coming up for us to really extract from this? The symbolism of the coal, it says, the Italian witch La Befana and Austria's Krampus both have the same rumblings of creation regarding the giving of coal at Christmas. Do bad, get bad. Then enjoy coal in your stocking. This goes way back, and parents, for many reasons, have used the stories. They hope to bring a child to do good throughout the year. The connection to the devil card is merely the knowledge that traps you lay for others could be hidden throughout your time here, and that you may eventually step into them yourself. So I was thinking of the coal in terms of, what's typically considered, something negative to receive, something that would be feared by a child, that they might get coal, and then a whole nother conversation about utilizing that as a parenting strategy. And we all have stories about that, I'm sure. Whether we were a child ourselves, as parents, as in stories and movies and television, and all different ways that may have played a role in our lives. And then I was thinking about coal from the idea of under pressure turning to diamonds, and that through the challenges and the bad, the pitfalls, the mistakes, the poor choices, the deceptions, all the devil tendencies, do we come out with some type of jewels of wisdom that come from the very challenging experiences of finding our balance there through entrapment. And then on the other side, liberation of some kind. There is another part to this card here that's speaking to the past, present, and future of this card and how we can see it through each of those lenses. So we're just going to feel into that here too. So from a past lens, it says, okay, now you've done it. Was that quicksand you stepped into? Whatever it was, something has happened of your own making, most likely, that you are horrified by, or at the very least guilty of. Nothing to do now but take your lumps and see what happens. It's okay. Not everyone drowns. Start over with better thinking next time. Well, as we were talking about in the astrological weather, things coming back up from the past, relationship circumstances and dynamics from the past, and then we know, we're looking at that big picture to say, okay, we've had all these planets that were in retrograde. They're all starting to station direct. We're in these post shadows. We're, closing out these lessons. So suffice it to say, those past choices, those past transgressions, those past everything coming back around again for us to see. But we're seeing it, we're greeting it, not from the same place where we left it, right? It's a new version of us now who sees this thing from the past with the hindsight of experience, lived experience, and wisdom gleaned through the struggle. So just the nature of something coming back around again doesn't mean that we've failed or we're doomed to repeat it. It just means that it's available for us to view through any lens of our choosing. So who am I going to be? And that's where our high priestess is winking at us to show up in which version of me to greet this thing from the past, right? Let's see what the present says. You're digging a deep hole and the rain is filling it up with you inside. Look around quickly and make whatever decision you can to get out of the predicament without hurting someone else. As soon as you drag someone down with you, the ante is upped in the negative. You already have enough problems. Be smart. Think again. Okay. So, if the devil is wrangling with us here in the present, it's like, okay, been there, done that, got the t-shirt. We know where this goes. And I can very well choose to say, you know what? And again, when you think about the devil and the nature of temptation or something that's easy or a vice of a kind, this can range from anything as minor as, eating extra chocolate or, taking something that's like a vice of yours, or a temptation that's just kind of something that's in the periphery, or something that could be very significant, a choice that you could make that affects many other people, or, could even hurt someone, or what have you, So this is where, our key word from last week that came up with that full moon was discernment. And my goodness, how many times I have said that since that time that we pulled that card a week ago. It's so important that you are stepping in. Again, which version of me is showing up, past, present, or future? The future version of you would be the one that is closest toward your highest self, because we're talking about you expanded, you leveled up, you evolving. And so as we tune into how I'm showing up and who I'm going to show up as, then I can make my decision with discernment as to whether or not this juice is worth the squeeze in terms of whatever is presenting itself in the way of temptation, familiarity, comfort zone, etc. So again, just putting all those potentialities out there so that if the devil energy shows up for you in that capacity this week, this is an opportunity for you to pause, step back, consciously choose which filter you want to come through, and then make your sovereign choice in terms of whether you're going to repeat something from the past or you're making a new choice. Now, in new choices, the future energy says there's nothing to do except get up and dust yourself off. Make amends to anyone you've damaged with your poor decisions. Everyone makes mistakes, but this one will be a doozy if you don't wake up to the consequences of your wrong thinking or doing. I hear accountability there, taking accountability for the role that we have played in whatever, and as we look over our cards coming up this week and we think about, relationship dynamics coming to the front and how we've talked so much about that this whole year, taking ownership for the role that I have played, even if it is me allowing someone else to make the devil tendency to be playing out in my life as a result of me continuing on with a person, a situation, a circumstance that I know that I have outgrown. I know that I've transcended, but because of a whole host of reasons for which I'm not judging myself, I'm just observing, I've chosen to remain, or I've chosen to repeat, or I've just chosen to do nothing. That Eight of Swords, feeling frozen and stuck and like my options are few. But I'm stepping into my higher self, and the blessing here this week feels like that turning point. So interesting to have that little extra here. And it's just speaking to taking ownership for the role that you've played and for moving forward with compassion, with grace, and with some humility in terms of we've all been there in that role, whether we're, again, talking about eating chocolate or something a whole lot bigger, but yet all in that same frequency. So, all right, we'll see where that takes us as we dive into our tarot messages for the week. All right, here we go. Starting with Monday, we come in with that Eight of Swords. So this, like I said, as we were talking at length about that entrapment devil energy coming in, this feels very connected to that, of coming in with a feeling of limitation in any number of ways. And in fact, as we look to the winter Waite, the very brief message says, feeling trapped in a bad situation, isolation, the feeling of not knowing what to do with a particular problem. And that's the other thing, is sometimes just simply out of exasperation do we go with the familiar because we know it, and if we feel trapped, then perhaps we go for what we know, right? That's the ego. That's the ego trying to keep it safe, keep it simple, keep it predictable. I don't want to take that chance. I don't want to step out there and try that new thing or put myself out in a vulnerable way because I don't know what's going to happen. And so even if I already know the devil I know is better than what I don't know, I'm willing to stick with that, and that's just sort of an internal dialogue that often goes on when the ego is ruling the roost. And it happens in the mind because, of course, the swords are all about the mind, our thoughts, our beliefs, our ideas. It's very mental. So if I feel trapped and I'm surrounded by swords, it's in the mind. It's mental jousting that's going on. And there's this, it's interesting that the binding would be all around the torso, the heart, the gut, that internal truth detector, that very space where we're saying is where the discernment happens. That's what's being squeezed. And the third eye, right? So it's like these higher knowing aspects of ourselves, like the mind and the ego has a role to play. But oftentimes, because we are such a cerebral people, we tend to really want to think and analyze our way through things versus being in touch with nature, with our bodies, with our feeling senses. And that's what's coming online for us. That's what's being awakened at this time. So when I talk about 12-12, when I talk about activating your light body, that's what we're touching on. And here we're seeing that having been like really limited and restricted and discouraged, shut down in many cases. And so, I feel a lot of connection here. And again, this can come up in so many different ways, just from a practical point of view, having to make a decision and not knowing, really feeling conflicted and confused. And I mean, here's my silly example. My son, my sweet boy, he just turned 13. And he also this year got his first phone because he plays an after-school sport and he doesn't come home on the bus. And there's a whole host of reasons that now he's discovered, the ability to create this wish list for Christmas and all these ideas that he can send to me and we can collaborate on. So I'm getting this list from him and there's all his thoughts, the things he'd like and screenshots and all this. And he's picking out like clothing, for example, but he's in this weird in between with the men's sizes and the boys' sizes. And he's not, he doesn't know. So he's sent it to me. And it's been on my plate to sit here and think and overthink and scrutinize size charts and look at all these things. And I'm just like, if I have to figure out another single thing, and I just feel mentally exhausted by this silly little thing of trying to compare and contrast and look at all these different things. And then, I finally say, I'm done. Okay. I've made my choices and I'm sticking with them. And then sure enough, another family member who gratefully would like to purchase a gift for my son comes in with all of their sizing questions. And I'm like, I can't, I give up. But anyway, I know that's such a silly example, but what I'm talking about is like getting ourselves all up in our head about anything, over analyzing, choosing between this or that thing or whatever. And oftentimes we just get so honed in on something and it just gets smaller and smaller and tighter till it's like, you've got to get up, back up and see it from a bigger perspective, in the grand scheme of things, and really prioritize whether something is really worth the energy that we're putting into it, or if the energy we're putting into it would be best redirected in a different way, and again, it's going to show up differently for everybody, but it's the frequency of expanding our view, of stepping back, of taking a beat instead of letting ourselves really kind of get pigeonholed into a space where our options feel incredibly limiting and overwhelming. And that's when burnout happens. That's when we may be tempted to fall back into something familiar or known, when really we're feeling that call for expansion. So again, if any of that is pinging for you or you're not sure how that's coming up for you and you would like a personal card pull this week, you just let me know. Okay, let's take a look now at that Tuesday card for our potential block or challenge. All right, Tuesday, our potential block or challenge, it's the beautiful Four of Wands, which is a card of celebration. Of feeling like we're gathering with tribe, with kindred spirits, they're celebrating. And so, like I said, this can be about coming together with family, with friends, for parties, for milestone events, birthdays, anniversaries, graduations, like all those type of things, retirements, we're finishing out the end of the year. And that's beautiful. What way might that be a block or challenge? And when we look at the simple guide here, it's saying, yes, could be attending family celebrations. Certainly the holiday season could be a time to visit, to celebrate with family that perhaps people we don't see as much during the year. And then it points out that we have pheasants here in the front, which, overall, the pheasant symbolism is one of opportunity, of abundance coming in. So a blocker challenge. Certainly, when it is a season of gathering and we're talking about, whether we are talking about exchanging gifts or in some way, coming together in a way where abundance is called for, and that may be a challenge in terms of having the budget or the holiday budget or the opportunity, the time to take all those different, factors that from a very practical standpoint could be coming in with those pheasants. But I think one of the key aspects of a challenged Four of Wands is really forgetting the importance of the simple things, getting caught up in the drama and there being a sense of disharmony or disconnect. So when we talk about tribe and gathering and getting together and celebrating and all those good feels, it's like the opposite of that. It's feeling disconnected. It's not feeling the same, or maybe, sometimes we have traditions or habits that we've done just because it's the holidays and we always do it, that maybe isn't feasible anymore. Maybe it's not practical. I'm thinking, I know that, going through different phases of life where, friends that you may have had in your early adulthood, just out of college or stepping into, adult life, and you have a certain group of friends or people that you gather with and maybe celebrate in a certain way. And then gradually as people kind of go off and maybe they get married, maybe they have children, maybe they move away, and there's these different circumstances where we might initially start out, regularly we're exchanging gifts like we always did, or we're connecting as we always did. And now it's like, as time goes on, we're still doing it because that's just what we've always done. We're like trying to make it work, but it doesn't quite feel in harmony. It doesn't feel balanced, so it's something like that where it's like we could have old routines and ways of being, ways of gathering and things that we do that we're just not quite feeling aligned with. So that could be for some people, but I think the forgetting the importance of the simple things is really what I'm tapping into here, because I feel like a lot of the examples that are coming to me seem kind of like surface, me like worrying about what size pants to get for my son or, exchanging gifts, which of course is not necessarily what everyone is concerned with. And yet there's an opportunity for us to go deeper. There's an opportunity for us to see, the simple things and just the simple pleasures of, giving rather than receiving, or just being together, or, twinkling lights that make you smile, or whatever it is for you. And in this season, especially that, that could be challenged, but we're being encouraged to create, by making choices and following our joy, which leads us ultimately here on 12/12, which is, I'm very excited to see this pivotal turning point when the higher self steps in. That's what I'm tapping into here in terms of how that's landing with the community and where we might be being compelled to step out and expand our communities, expand our sense of connection and, just being in the moment of those simple things, not getting caught up in drama and that type of energy. So we'll see how that plays out, but let's take a look now at that midweek blessing. All right, Wednesday, our midweek blessing, and it's our lone major arcana card for the tarot messages this week. Of course, we had the devil over here as our overlighting theme, but this beautiful energy came forward as the high priestess for our midweek blessing. And I feel like I was saying in the card pull, she's like a glow up, because over here we have this disempowered, bound, limited, small sense of self. And here we've repurposed that red bondage, really. And that goes perfectly, of course, with our devil, to cloaking ourselves in sovereignty, in grounded wisdom, in feeling that sense of the red. And it's from the top all the way down that there's this sense of standing or sitting, in this case, in our power, right? In our higher knowing, even more deeply connected with that version of us, the higher self. Here, the high priestess says, she represents secrets and what is hidden. She is sometimes interpreted as the Shekinah, the English transliteration of a Hebrew word meaning dwelling or settling. It denotes the dwelling or settling of the divine presence of God. So yeah, really powerful energy that comes through the high priestess. And this sense of really being in touch with the spiritual, ethereal, through dreams, powerful visions, psychic insights, through serendipity. Oh my goodness, all of the, synchronicities that have been abounding. I mean, it's always that way around these parts, but it has been off the chain. So many of you reaching out, spiritual breadcrumbs, connections coming through the cards that we pulled last week, whether it be for the week ahead reading on the Sharecast or for the Empowerment Pack or the full moon. There's just been so much. And, it's in this reflective way, though, then that we take that and we go within and have, this intuitive knowing. It's really about being connected in with the spirit. It's the opposite. It's the opposite of all that overthinking. So I love that as a blessing because there's an empowered position to be in when we know that somewhere within me, as I say, what are you asking me for? You already know. The answer is within you. The power was with you all along, my dear. Yes, every week we've got shameless Wizard of Oz references coming in, but I mean, right? I'm not reaching. It's there. That she really feels like, that wise self, that aspect of you who knows and connects you in a very direct way that's not all tangled up in the mental jousting, like I said. So really stepping into that from that spiritual perspective. What day did I say Neptune was stationing direct? That was, of course, the 10th. So it's this day. Of course it is. So yeah, Neptune stations direct on this day. Neptune in Pisces. I mean, it doesn't get much more spiritual and, what do you believe and what are your practices and all the woo-woo goodness than that. Neptune in Pisces. So yes, going direct. So some clarity around our spiritual beliefs, some recognition that some of those same old rinse repeat beliefs no longer resonate, and making some discerning choices about where to from here. And it looks like in that spirit, we then move into the heart because we finish the week then with 2 cups cards. Let's take a look at Thursday. All right. Thursday is bringing in our chivalrous, romantic, the Knight of Cups, presenting us with something to take forward. The knights represent some type of action or movement. This one is of the heart, right, with the cups. So the winter Waite take is definitely in the romantic way. It's saying that this card can represent a seasonal affair, finding love during the holidays. He personifies the courtship period in a relationship. Yeah, like they'll often say in love with love itself. Like he's just like, like the romance and the opening the car door and the surprise dates and the, the little gestures and all those things when something is new and novel. Not just about relationships, but we can feel into that frequency and know that in any new experience versus one that's more established, there's a different experience. Not better or worse, just different. But both of them exist and we can tap into those frequencies at will. Sometimes it takes effort. It may cause us to have to come through and break down a couple of those swords that are perhaps blocking us or getting in the way of us accessing our joy. And in general, a Knight of Cups is a more youthful energy. So there is a sense of novelty, and positivity and seeing the cup as half full, whereas the cynicism of life can come about. And it's not a judgment because when we've been on the other side, we can very well understand how easy it is to be cynical. Again, that devil, it's an entrapment. to believe that this is it. That's all, the highlight reel and the best days have gone by, and rather than believing that it's what I make it and my perspective and what I bring to the table. So the Knight of Cups invites us to really get in touch with how we feel. How does it make me feel? And if it feels heavy, if it feels like an obligation, if it feels like something that's certainly not uplifting us or bringing us joy, then we're really asked to take a beat to decide if that's something we want to continue to carry forward or if we're looking to make some new choices. So how are we growing? I think, I'm getting sort of like we're being invited to date ourselves, when we talk about the romantic and opening the door and, the chair. And I'm saying because it's a chivalrous energy, but it doesn't have to be male or female. It's just about the idea of making an extra effort to put our best foot forward, I feel, for ourself, which means sometimes if no one's going to see us, if we're not going anywhere particularly, are we saving up something that, whether it be clothing or, something new that we wanted to try, but we just haven't found the perfect conditions yet to do so, that we're being encouraged to just do it because it makes you feel good, because you enjoy it, because it's something that you like, something that makes you smile. So making choices, I feel, is a part of this that lights us up. And like I say about dating ourselves is taking time to really, whether it be journaling or just having like a conscious practice from here on out to finish out this year for sure, with some reflection on things that you love about yourself and complimenting yourself and seeing the light and the good and the progress. And if the first thought that comes to our mind is something negative or critical, that you can just see it there and set it to the side, and then now turn your focus toward what good did you do in that scenario, or what is a compliment you could give yourself in that scenario. So there's opportunities for us to seek out the positive, to seek out, the light within ourselves. And again, I just feel like it's that blanket of date yourself, plan some dates with yourself, even if they are just, days at home, to just allow yourself some self-care time in whatever way works for you. Or if you feel to get out, to go somewhere, to treat yourself, do so, right? Eat the chocolate, right? There's the devil coming in to tempt you. No, in balance, right? All things in balance, same with the dating, like you can't spend every single moment together because that's going to hit the fan too. So, we're growing into a relationship with this new emerging version of us, but also with the parts of us from the past that have informed, paved the way, made it possible. I think that's going to lead into what's going on with the path that we see coming with our final card. But we've got one more to talk about before we get there. Let's look at that 12-12 energy coming in with the Three of Cups. All right, our final tarot card for the week in our collective energies is the Three of Cups. So more cups, more heart chakra energy. Does feel very connected that our Knight of Cups was offering a red cup. These ladies are all toasting with the red cups. We've talked about the symbolism of the red throughout. And feeling, again, as we asked before we started, I brought in that crimson base root chakra of feeling safe and secure and powerful in our base, rooted, anchored, so that we can reach out and go toward following our heart and putting that out there. So this Three of Cups says that it's the card of celebrations, parties, get-togethers, and social encounters that involve a group. So in a holiday reading or in this season, it could represent an office party or again, a gathering of groups of people. We talked about the challenges over here with the Four of Wands. Now we have these ladies gathering. So again, for sure, some people, I know I have a few different things going on this week. So I'm definitely resonating here with my calendar, having some meetups and things going on that I'm very much looking forward to, and meeting with different people in my life and having an opportunity to connect for the season. So I understand, how that's coming up for me. So bringing yourself into it and tapping into that frequency on the most basic level, yes, getting together, office party, Christmas party, celebrating the holidays with family and loved ones. It does mention to be careful with the eggnog. So again, discernment about overindulging in any way, which of course we know we had that entrapment devil energy here to remind us as well about that. So all things in balance. But I do feel like these ladies, all dressed in different frocks for the holiday, are each bringing something different to the table and coming together in a really beautiful and harmonious way. So again, it's you connecting with others and going out there with your own unique cup of cheer and bringing it to the whole, bringing it to the table, toasting that, communing, coming together. So a beautiful energy to finish out the week. And as I said, this happens to be on the 12/12 portal. I'll talk more about that later this week, but definitely feeling that upgrade energy coming in here. And yes, also a nod to the divine feminine energies I'm tapping into with this group. Okay, let's look at our final card coming in from the Seasons of the Witch, Yule. All right, our final card for the week is from the Seasons of the Witch Yule Oracle, and it is this card of Forest, card 15, our second card 15 of the week, bookended by the Devil energy with entrapment, and now here, Forest. And this is bringing forward strength, patience, and grounding. It says, it's time to dig deeper roots, find your sacred soul, and build a stronger foundation. Walk through any forest and you will see ancient trees reaching high into the sky. But they didn't start off this way. Delicate roots had to dig deep into the earth to prepare these massive trees to stand tall for years to come. Even harsh winters and brutal storms couldn't bring them down. Forest guides you to build a stronger foundation and to remember that success takes time. Be consistent in your efforts. Gather your resources, plan, and reflect. Your goal is not something that can be achieved overnight, but is on the path to success. The Forest card represents long-term planning, but also lasting power and influence. Pulling this card is a positive sign that you will be recognized for your efforts and commitment. Furthermore, continue with what works. There's no need to take risks at this time. Now, there's a fun little section here after this that's talking about the trees of Yule. And I just want to mention this before I get into my intuitive thoughts, because of course this is a forest and we see a number of different trees in the background. And of course, all of the beautiful decks we're working with this month are very rich in symbolism with holly and ivy and in this case, we've got balsam fir, cedar, pine, spruce. And I've been sort of collecting as I go and I see beautiful thumbnails pop up and all different things out there about the spiritual connection of some of those different plants and trees and the symbolism. And so this piques my interest that this is sharing with us the trees of Yule. And it happens to be on page 66, which, like I said, our two 15s on each end of our reading are carrying the frequency of the 1 and the 5 as 6 and 6, right? Which is 12. So all connected. Okay, the trees of Yule. The balsam fir is representative of progress, intuition, peace, and guardianship. Cedar is for confidence, home protection, healing, and strength. Pine for new beginnings, grounding, cleansing, and success. Also lovely for house blessings and celebrations. Spruce for perseverance, clarity, and adaptability. So again, whether we're bringing this into our homes, the scent, the clippings, the essence, the cards, the words, just in any way that we can tap into this frequency that each of these beautiful aspects of nature bring forward for us in this season. And like I said, as I'm preparing for my Yule altar and winter solstice and readings, and I'm gathering all that information, that's all things I weave into those readings, as well as sharing just little bits of wisdom and things that come up as I go, in ways that you can very intentionally bring that in and make it your own for the season. So with this forest card talking about strength, patience, and grounding, the roots are so interesting. And I'm trying to remember what card it was. But through the course of the many readings from last week, there was talk about trees and how the roots grow as deeply down into the ground as high as the branches go above. So when you look at a massive, majestic tree, especially an old tree, or as this was talking about ancient trees in the forest, and you think about how long that tree has been there and how the resilience and the perseverance for it to grow and what it has withstood and all of it, and you just see how beautiful and mighty it is in its reach. Know that the roots beneath it go just as deep and just as vast, which is pretty cool because it's so intricate and complex and involved, and it's all going on beneath the surface. So this gives me a flashback to our Eight of Swords. Just because I can't see it, just because I've yet to see the tangible results of this thing that I've been working on and trying for and waiting for and wanting and wishing and thinking that I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to do, and when's it going to show up? And there's that word patience again. And if I hear it one more time, right? Imagine that tree for hundreds of years and more, what it has taken to create the stable foundation that it is anchoring it in. And of course, this is where we're coming from. In November, we had the theme of sacred foundation. You know, this sense of we want to create a foundation that will last. And so it makes sense to me now, punctuating the reading with this forest card, that the challenge of the Four of Wands being that it is framework. It's like the bones. It's like when you're in the home and you have just like the outline, you have the framework of the home, and then you say it has good bones, and then we're going to build on it, and we're going to make it our own, and we're going to improve upon it or expand upon it. But we have that original foundation. That is crucial, right? And you can make something look beautiful on the outside, but if the foundation isn't strong, if the foundation isn't secure, it means nothing. And that's the coal again, right? Oof, got a little chill there. Come full circle back to this overarching theme of the week with the entrapment of the idea that just because I got coal doesn't mean that I'm not good, that I'm not worthy, that I don't deserve, or that what the heck am I going to do with these black lumps? I remember last year I shared my little Elena Joy. She had some quip to come back with about coal for kids and how, you know, it was actually cool for a reason. I forget what she said, but I remember sharing it with the group. I'll have to go back and look out of the mouths of babes. But like I said, the compression of that coal turning to a diamond, right? So that brings us into a whole nother analogy of all of those struggles and difficulties and setbacks and perceived failures and all the things, lumps of coal along our way, actually seeing the gift in those things, actually seeing how they served us to create the foundation that we truly desire, or bring to light for us aspects about our foundation that were no longer sustainable. And the only way that we found that out was maybe by making that poor choice, bad choice, you know, falling into temptation, going back into comfort zone one last time to experience something in order to harvest that gift, to extract that from it. So, you know, lots of different ways that can be showing up, but And I don't know, I haven't seen Wicked 2 yet. I know, and I've seen the first one last year. And like I said, this card is giving me those Wicked Witch vibes. And there's an aspect to that, like I said, without knowing the whole story, wicked for good, but this sense of being misunderstood and being perceived as flat out wicked or good, right? And actually understanding that there's more than just what meets the eye or what we're not able to see, which of course is that headliner with that 8 of Swords coming up. So definitely feel some themes for this week. And sometimes it's like you're just going through the day to day and you're like, some of these boxes you might be checking with like a practical, like, yep, I got to make decisions. Yep. I have a gathering or a Christmas party or these different things that I could see where this is coming up for me. It may not be until we're on the other side in hindsight that we see this deeper symbolism of the very things that we've been moving through or that could crop up this week or however it presents itself, having that deeper meaning to it or a greater lesson or blessing that's there for us to come into. And again, that's where, for one last time, I invite you, if you would like a personal card pull this week for more clarity or to expand on that, please reach out and let me know. Okay, everybody, I'm sending you much love, many blessings, and have a wonderful week. We'll talk soon.